from 1929 to 1939, there was a severe worldwide economic depression known as the Great Depression. In this Great Depression, banks collapsed, the stock market of Wall Street collapsed, unemployment rose to about 23% in the US and about 33% in some countries and 50% in other countries. It was a very serious situation, and for the 19th and the 20th and the 21st century, it is the most severe economic depression the world has ever experienced. In this Great Depression, it actually started in the US and spread to other parts of the world and really affected other parts of the world because, as you know, New York is the financial center of the world. So once the stock market crash of New York collapsed, it affected the whole world, and there was so much poverty and unemployment. And in this Great Depression, they elected Franklin D. Roosevelt as the president of the US to manage this crisis because his predecessor couldn't manage it properly. So he managed the crisis, and within 3 months or 90 days that he entered office, he started bringing it down, and finally it was wiped out. But it took over a 10-year period for them to be able to overcome this depression. And in this same Great Depression, a book was born, and the title of that book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The core philosophy of the book is that you can really think and grow rich. And by thinking and grow rich, it means that if you have a burning desire to do something, you think and come out of an idea, and your desire is not any mere desire, but it's a burning, persistent desire backed by faith. There is nothing like impossibility, and that thing that you are dreaming is really going to be achieved at the end of the day. And Napoleon Hill used 20 good years to investigate or to interview some of the richest people of his day, and came out with this. This book has really been impactful. It has really produced more billionaires and more millionaires than any other book in the history of the world. And the book has also sold more than 100 million copies. It has really impacted me. One of the key books that has changed my life so much is Think and Grow Rich. It has been ranked as the best motivational book and the best business book of all time since the beginning of human history. And so in this book, I want to share with you 7 powerful stories I read from Think and Grow Rich. They are real life stories, they are not fiction. It's real life stories. And if you take the lesson from these stories, it is going to help you a lot. I'm going to take them one by one so that we will always learn the story and the lesson from it. Then the next one, we'll look at the story and the lesson that's from it. If you are new here, please subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, as I'm always producing a video, sometimes 3 or 5 videos a week. And if you follow this channel, I promise you that you won't be an ordinary person. Okay, so without wasting my time, we go into the book. The first story I'll talk about is the story of Frank Gunsaulus. Frank Gunsaulus was a minister of God. He was a pastor. And when he was going to school at his time, most of the courses were too theoretical and not practical. So he had a dream, and the dream was that when he could, if he had money, he would start a school, a university, and that particular university would be more practical oriented than theoretical courses. But he thought over it every day. It was something that was in his heart that he was thinking about every day. For close to over 2 years, he never found how he's going to do it, because the estimated cost of building that university was $1 million. And in those days, getting $1 million could be equivalent to getting close to $500 million or $1 billion today. And how was he going to get that money? So he thought and thought and thought, and there was no way he could get the money. But he also believed that once he was able to, he could imagine doing such a thing. If his faith and his desire was strong enough, he could achieve it. So he thought like that till he decided one day that he's going to take a very definite action, because he was just thinking and not taking an action. So he took an action, and the action was that he's going to preach a sermon, and the title of the sermon is "What I Would Do If I Had the $1 million." So he prepared the sermon for over 1 week, and on that particular Sunday, he went, bathed. He was so overjoyed that he went and bathed, and he was rehearsing the sermon. And when he finished bathing, and he left the paper or the sermon that he had written inside the bathroom and came. Then he wore everything and got to the church. Now came out to preach, and when he took his Bible, there's no sermon in it. But he had already trusted himself that the kind of preparation he went through over the past 2 years, and the thing has been in his subconscious mind for over 2-year period. He has mastered everything, and he can speak without the sermon. So he went and preached the sermon and actually talked into details about what he could do if he had $1 million. And guess what? He finished the preaching, and someone came and said, man of God, I trust what you said, and I know that if you actually get the $1 million, you will build a university that will be more practical and will actually change the society the way you promised. So tomorrow, come to my office and take that $1 million. So the following day, he went to the office and took that. That's Phil. What do you call it? I've forgotten the full name, but his first name is Philip. Okay, it's Phil Amon. So the following day, he went to the office of Phil Amon and took the $1 million and built the university. The name of the university is Amon Institute of Technology. It's in Illinois. As I speak to you today, the university is still there. In fact, they later merged it with another university, and the name was later changed to Illinois Institute of Technology. Now, what's the lesson that we've learned from this? The lesson that I have learned, and you can also learn from it, is that if you have a burning desire to do something, and you don't have a definite goal, you could have a very strong desire, you want to do something, you have been thinking about it, but you must have a specific goal. You must write down a goal, give yourself a deadline, because he was thinking over 2 years and couldn't do it. But the day he got up himself and said that within 1 week he has to do this, within the 1 week he had the money. So all of us, money, we have the money. There are ways that we can get the money, but the money is in the form of an idea that you must bring that idea to its practical equivalent in physical terms. So I believe that if you decide to set a specific goal with a deadline and you follow it, you can achieve your goal. That's the first lesson. The second lesson from Think and Grow Rich is the story of Captain Hernan Cortesi. This is a Spanish explorer soldier who was capturing territories. You know, in those days they used to fight, and when they fight and overcome you, they capture your territory as part of their own. So this man was in the North Americas, and very close to where Mexico is today. So what happened is, this man led his group. They were going to attack an enemy, so they went through the sea, and finally when they had come to the enemy's land, now to begin the fight, the man realized that his people, they were fewer in number as compared to their enemy. So if they were not going to take any risk, it is going to be difficult for them to ever conquer their enemy. So he took one of the most difficult decisions of his life, and what he did is that he commanded his people to burn all the ships that they had gone through and came to the land. So they burned all the ships. So when they were burning the ships, he told his people, have you seen, now we don't have any ship to travel and go back. If we don't overcome, if we are not able to fight and win this battle, they will kill us, and it means that there's no way to escape. And so they fought, and guess what? They won. In fact, their enemies far outnumbered them by more than 2 times, but they were able to fight this battle and win it. It is not because they were already prepared to fight so hard or anything, but because of the risk he took. Human beings by nature, sometimes if we know there is no option for us, we will do all that we can to succeed. But sometimes if we know there are options, we are reluctant. If they did not burn the ships, probably they could have fight, and along the way they return and go and take their ships and run away. But because they knew that they had no ships, there was no opportunity for them to retreat unless they are killed. So once they knew they would be killed, they had no option. So the lesson I have learned from this is that sometimes you have to take very huge calculated risk. When you take a risk, you put all your effort, and at the end of the day, you are able to come out victorious. So as human beings, you are born to take risks. After risk, you will always come across. So take risk. So the third story is the story of Henry Ford. During the First World War, Henry Ford, there was a newspaper in Chicago that published a story, and they called Henry Ford an ignorant pacifist. And Henry Ford became outraged by that insult and took them to court. So when he took them to court, they actually the defense lawyer asked Henry Ford to come and stand on the witness box and answer questions. And some of the questions that they were asking them were like, how many soldiers were sent by the British troops to come and fight the British-American War of 1776, during the time Americans were fighting to gain their independence? How many soldiers did the British send to come and fight against the Americans? And several other questions like that, very theoretical questions that were of history in nature. And Henry Ford answered a lot of the questions, and some of them he didn't know. So it came to a time that Henry Ford became angry and said that, Mr. Lawyer, if I should really be ready to answer those foolish questions you have been asking, I want to let you know that I have in my possession an electric press button that I can press and get someone to come to my aid at any time and answer any question I want. And so he asked the man what was the true meaning of education, because most people think that education means that being able to memorize facts and produce facts or chew things and produce them, like the way we normally say in Ghana, chew and pour. That is not about education. Now, for those of you who don't know Henry Ford is the man that commercialized the production of cars. The production of cars. So just think about it. The man who was the first person to actually invent and commercialize the production of cars throughout the world. Before Henry Ford, there was no car. Yes, some people attribute the inventor of cars to Carl Benz of Germany. But Carl Benz only produced a car that he couldn't commercialize it, and it didn't even become something like a worldwide issue that people really knew what was car. It was Henry Ford who came and invented his first model and actually commercialized the production throughout the whole world. And it is through Henry Ford that we all got to know what is car, and today we have car. Before Henry Ford time, they were using horses. So imagine the man who came to commercialize the production of cars, and because he didn't have degrees, or he didn't go to university, or he didn't go far in school, from research, Henry Ford had 8th grade education. 8th grade means, for those that are not familiar with the US system, that is about being in junior high school year 3. That is JHS 3, junior high school 3. So because he completed only junior high school or only 8th grade and didn't go to college or university, they are calling him an ignorant. What is the true meaning of education? So Henry Ford was able to school them to understand that education is about being able to apply, to have specialized knowledge in any field that you are doing, and can use that knowledge to impact lives and to acquire what you want without infringing upon the rights of others. So your ability to create, to innovate, to solve problems is what true education is. And true education is not having facts, having certificate. So that is what I learned, and it has really changed my life, because there are a lot of things I never studied in school, but I wanted to do them in real life. So I was always thinking, because I haven't studied business in school, can I really do business? Because I feel like if I'm going to do business, people are going to say, did you study business in school? But I want to let you know that the most successful business people have never studied business in school. The most successful entrepreneurs, they didn't study entrepreneurship. The most successful politicians didn't study political science. Think about that deeply. So you have to know that education goes beyond sitting in classroom and learning. Education is about the mind. If you can read books on your own and develop concepts, understand things, and can provide value, you are educated. Don't think education is about sitting in the classroom. Okay, so that's the third lesson from Think and Grow Rich. The fourth lesson is the story of Edwin Barnes. Edwin Barnes was a man who wanted to go into partnership with Thomas Edison. For those who don't know, Thomas Edison is the world's greatest inventor of all time. He invented most of the devices that we're using today, something like the electric bulb, something like sound devices, and a whole lot of other things. He really changed the world. At the time of before Thomas Edison, there was no light. So imagine, there was no light bulb. people were really using what do you call it? There was no electricity. There were other forms of light, but there was no electricity or electric bulb. It is Thomas Edison that invented it. So imagine Edwin Barnes wanted to go into partnership with Thomas Edison as a business associate, but he was not close to him. He was not his relative. He didn't know any way he can really possibly use to get it. But he had a burning desire. The desire was that no matter what will happen, he's going to become a business associate with Thomas Edison. So what he did is that he set up, he left his place and he didn't even have the money to travel to meet Thomas Edison. So he had to join a free train. For those who don't know, a free train is a train that carries goods and not human beings. So he had to join like a luggage, or he had to join like in the boot of the, like you joining the boot of a car. And so it is something equivalent to that. So he had to join a free train, just like a boot or in the boot of the train, and finally got to Thomas Edison. So when he got to Thomas Edison, he actually communicated his desire to Thomas Edison to be a business associate. But of course, Thomas Edison didn't take the idea because he didn't know much about his capabilities and what he could do for him. But Edwin Barnes was dedicated and determined that he must become a business associate with Thomas Edison. So he was with Thomas Edison. He said any job he could get in Thomas Edison's company, he would do. And Thomas Edison gave him a job as a cleaner. So he was working as a cleaner. Then any little possible opportunity, he will find a way to interact with Thomas Edison and trying to see what he could do to help him. And guess what? There was an opportunity. Edison invented the Ediphone, and his employees didn't believe in the Ediphone. Marketing it was a problem. And Edwin Barnes approached Thomas Edison that he would assist or help in the marketing of the Ediphone. And he actually tried all his best and found out innovative ways that he was actually able to sell it. And he was the only person in the company able to sell the product for Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison was so happy with that ability to such an extent that he finally agreed that he is going to go into a contract with Edwin Barnes for him to distribute the product, that is the Ediphone, to all parts of the USA. And so the man signed the contract and was now distributing. So he made millions of dollars. According to some estimate, he made more than $6 million from the sales of that product in the US in those days. And $6 million in those days is not any small money. If it is in today's terms, it could be $1 billion or more. So imagine the amount of money he made. And the lesson I have learned from here is that if you have a burning desire to do something and you are determined to do it, nothing can stop you. Because when he came and Thomas Edison said that he will not allow him to really go into business partnership with him, he could have said, okay, then if I work as a cleaner and then it doesn't yield any profit, I'll go back. But it took him 5 good years before he was able to draw the attention of Thomas Edison to agree to come into partnership with him. So you have to have a burning desire and be very relentless and be determined that until you achieve it, you will never stop. The 5th one is the story of Blair Hill. Who is Blair Hill? Blair Hill is the son of Napoleon Hill, and the unique problem or the unique story about that guy is that Blair Hill was born without ears. So of course, as human beings, we are born with ears, and that helps us to be able to hear. Unfortunately, Blair Hill didn't have ears. He couldn't talk. He couldn't listen. But Napoleon Hill was determined that their desire must outwit Mother Nature. What does that mean? He was determined that their child he's not going to accept a deaf mute son. And so he's going to do all things he could do to make sure his son is able to hear and talk. So what happened? And when they wanted to send him to a deaf and dumb school, they refused, because people were saying, why don't you send him to a deaf and dumb school? But they refused. They said they won't teach him sign language. He must join normal children in school. And so one day, Napoleon Hill bought a music instrument, I think it was in those days, just like a tape or something. And he was playing a song, and the child could hear, because the child was able to use his teeth to hold a certain part of the sound equipment, and because of that, he was able to hear. So later on, Napoleon Hill discovered that there is a principle called bone conduction of sound. So when he discovered that bone could conduct sound, and sometimes even when they are talking to the guy and they are able to touch some part of his bone, he's able to hear very well and could even talk. So they finally were able to get a hearing equipment for him. In fact, he even grew up to the university level. And they tested so many hearing equipment and it didn't help until one day they got one hearing equipment. In fact, they had already even given up and they thought it's not going to help, but they reluctantly tried it and he was able, in fact, it did all the magic and the guy was able to hear and talk. So that was the beginning of his miracles. Imagine someone that was born deaf and dumb, and because of that hearing equipment, he had no ears. There's no ears, there are no holes where sound could go, but he was able to use that hearing equipment to hear and to talk. So at the end of the day, Blair Hill, who was born natural because of nature's error of not having ears, which he's supposed to have, their desire was able to outwit Mother Nature. So what I'm trying to say is, or the lesson I've learned in this particular story is that nature could actually make errors, but your desire can outwit Mother Nature. Just like what happened in the son of Napoleon Hill. There are so many people who are born with errors from nature. Certain things happen and if you are born like that, you think you cannot change it because that's how you were born with. But I tell you that your desire can outweigh Mother Nature. So that is the lesson from that. The next one I'll talk about is the story of R.U.Darby, popularly called 3 feet from gold in the Think and Grow Rich. For those who have read it, you know what 3 feet from gold is. And that is there was a man called R.U.Darby, and that man actually discovered gold in Colorado in the US. And what happened is that he went to borrow money from his relatives and bought the machines, came and explored the gold. They actually had the gold, but they got to a point where there was no more gold, and they dug and couldn't get gold. So they gave up thinking that there was no more gold. And at that point, the company wasn't profitable. The monies they had borrowed to buy the equipment, they couldn't even pay those monies. But because they were no longer getting gold, they gave up and finally sold the equipment and went and then paid some of their debt. But they were still in huge debt. And then someone that Napoleon Hill named a junk man in the book, he went and took an engineer to come and do research on the land. And the engineer concluded that the gold is actually there, but it was left with 3 feet for them to reach the gold. And guess what? The man actually got the right equipment. They came and dug the gold, and within 3 feet, they actually reached the gold. When the others had just left just 3 feet for them to reach the gold, and they left. So that particular man was able to mine the gold in very large quantities and made so much money. And later on, R.U.Darby realized that when he left, others actually came and were able to mine the gold. So he went into insurance business, and his aim was now that because he made the mistake and couldn't mine the gold, and someone came and took over, and he lost a lot because he was not patient enough to do the right calculation. When he went into the insurance, his aim was that no one will reject him and he will give up. He went on and was persistent, and at the end of the day, he was able to sell so much insurance and become a multi-millionaire. So that is the lesson of persistence and not giving up. Because some of us, we just do something, once we are not progressing, we give up too early. So that is the lesson for you. Now we go to the last lesson, and the last lesson is the story of Coca-Cola. Yeah, John Pemberton was the one who discovered the Coca-Cola. Who discovered the secret or the formula for Coca-Cola, and after discovering the secret, he was producing the drink, but people were not patronizing it that much. So he sold the company. He went to a pharmacy shop and met Asa Candler. Asa Candler was actually the one taking care of that particular pharmaceutical shop. So when he went there and greeted him, they had a discussion, and then he sold the formula to him. And he sold it for about $500. Yes, in today, even if that is much, I'm sure that will not be up to $10,000, or even if it is more than that, it will be up to $1 million. So he sold it for something mega. And then as a Candler bought the formula, in fact, he bought it with a kettle, And so initially he didn't even know what he had bought. He thought he actually bought a kettle, but it was the formula, the secret formula that he bought. As you may know, up to this day, they are saying that it's only 2 people in the world, only 2 employees of Coca-Cola that know the formula of Coca-Cola. So he sold the formula to as a handler, and the man also bought the drink, and then he was very innovative and has keen insight into business. So he was able to develop it into a big company by 1892. He got it in 1888, and by 1892 he had started a company, built the company to some sustainable level, had more employees. The company was thriving. Initially, when John Pemberton began, it was about 9 people that were drinking it a day. But with Asakandla's innovative improvements, it came to a time that the demand was so massive throughout the US. And as I tell you, Coca-Cola today is the monopoly or the leading company in the soft drinks industry worldwide. So you can imagine how a little investment of $500 could land him into a global company that was now making millions of dollars every month. And today, as I speak to you, Coca-Cola, as of 2020, made more than $40 billion in 1 year. So you can imagine the profit, about $43 billion just in 1 year from Coca-Cola. So the lesson that we have to learn is that you may start a business, the business is not making progress. You think, oh, let me sell it and go. You may be selling, you may just be near your breakthrough point, and you sell it and later on regret. So I encourage you to be persistent and be determined and never give up, even when things are not going well the way you are. Even before you quit, you can quit. Sometimes you have to quit, but before you quit, you should do your calculation and have your keen insight, so that you won't quit and regret later. These are just the 7 stories I have learned from Think and Grow Rich. I wish you should, if you also learn these 7 stories, it will help you. You can buy the book and read for more insight. Remember to subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, and we will share with you more powerful videos that can help to transform your life to another level. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.